Hi, this is Dr. Mark Hyman. Welcome to my weekly house call, your chance to ask me your questions. And this week's question is, my doctor says my LDL cholesterol is really high and he's concerned, but I saw in your videos that cholesterol is complicated and now you're saying that I should eat more fat, which should improve my cholesterol. I thought fat was the last thing I should be eating. I'm so confused. My doctor didn't tell me anything about this. Can you explain for me? Well, look, I know it's confusing. There's so much outdated research still being preached by the media, scientists, and even our doctors. The truth about cholesterol is much more complicated than we thought. Now, I'm sure most of us believe that eating cholesterol and fat, and especially saturated fat, causes heart attacks, and that taking statin drugs are a powerful way to reduce your risk of heart attacks. But is this really true? One of the biggest myths out there is around cholesterol and fat and heart disease. Specifically, that cholesterol is the enemy and that a high-fat diet causes heart attacks. If you think cholesterol is the enemy, think again. Your body needs cholesterol to make your hormones, your cell membranes, and even your brain cells. Without enough cholesterol, your testosterone levels would drop and your sex drive and function would plummet. And your cell membranes, which are made of cholesterol, couldn't function properly. So it's not about having lower cholesterol, it's about having the right type of cholesterol. We're all terrified of cholesterol because for years, well-meaning doctors, echoed by the media and the drug companies, have emphasized what we believe to be an intimate link between cholesterol and death and heart disease. If only it were so simple. The truth is much more complex. Cholesterol is only one factor among many and may not even be the most important one that contributes to your risk of getting heart disease. Things like inflammation and diabetes, that little bit of belly fat to prediabetes to full-blown type 2 diabetes are actually the real causes of heart attacks. Part of the reason that saturated fat got a bad rap is that we had a singular focus on LDL cholesterol being the most important cause of heart disease. Now, for a long while, we didn't know that fat actually increased the good type of LDL and increased also HDL, or good cholesterol, having no impact or even a beneficial impact on the total cholesterol to HDL ratio, which is actually the best predictor of heart disease. Guess what has the biggest and the worst impact on that ratio? It's sugar and carbs, because they lower HDL and they raise triglycerides and also increase the number of bad cholesterol particles. Since cholesterol deposits are found in the arteries of people with heart disease, it seems logical that if you eat cholesterol or saturated fat, which raises total cholesterol and LDL cholesterol, then you shouldn't eat fat or cholesterol. Yet study after study has shown no link between total fat and even saturated fat or dietary cholesterol and heart disease. In fact, a review of 72 studies of almost 600,000 people found no link between total or saturated fat and heart disease. But they did find that trans fat were clearly harmful and omega-3 fats were beneficial. What most doctors and drug company commercials don't tell you about are the studies that show that most people who have heart attacks have normal cholesterol and not from taking statin medication. Yet because we have drugs that lower cholesterol, that's what we focus on. Now, there was a big study of 541 hospitals with 231,836 admissions for heart attacks that equaled 59% of all heart attacks in America that year. Now, did they all have high cholesterol? Hardly. 75% of those people with heart attacks had, quote, normal cholesterol under 130, and 50% had what we consider optimal levels under 100, and 17% had levels under 70. But what they did find was that most of them had diabetes or metabolic syndrome, with the average HDL or good cholesterol of 39, and the ideal is about over 60, and the average triglycerides of 161, and the ideal is under 70. And 50% had HDL levels under 40, and only 10% had levels over 60, meaning 90% of people with heart attacks had levels under 60. Now that is an indicator of prediabetes. We've been looking under the wrong rock for the problem. It's not fat and dietary cholesterol, it's sugar and refined carbs. In fact, the 2015 U.S. Dietary Guidelines Advisory Committee, after reviewing all the research, has, after 40 years, told us to stop worrying about dietary cholesterol, calling it, quote, not a nutrient of concern. You gotta love that. And they've lifted any recommendations to restrict dietary fat in the diet. I recently interviewed one of the world's leading cholesterol experts and researchers, Dr. Ronald Krauss. He told me that in the 1980s, when low-fat mania was at its heyday, he performed a study taking people with normal cholesterol and fed them a low-fat, high-carb diet, which was thought to be healthy at the time. He was shocked at what happened. He turned them from having healthy cholesterol profiles into heart attack-prone cholesterol profiles with high triglycerides, low HDL, and small LDL particles. It blew their minds, and yet 40 years later, we still haven't gotten it right. So the key is the type of fat you eat that is more important than the amount of fat. Trans fats or hydrogenated fats and refined vegetable oils promote abnormal cholesterol, whereas omega-3 fats from fish and monounsaturated fats found in nuts and olive oil actually improve the type and quantity of your cholesterol. Again, the biggest source of abnormal cholesterol is not fat at all, it's sugar. The sugar you consume converts to fat in your body. And the worst culprit of all is high fructose corn syrup. That's found in sodas, in juices, and in most processed foods. And it's what causes cholesterol issues in most people. Fructose is a problem because when it's ingested in high amounts without the associated fiber found in whole fruit, as in the case with high fructose corn syrup, it turns on the cholesterol production factory in your liver called lipogenesis that makes super dangerous small LDL and jacks up your triglycerides and lowers the HDL or good cholesterol. And so does sugar in any form, including flour and refined carbs. So why are we all so obsessed with cholesterol and LDL cholesterol? Simple. There's a multi-billion-dollar drug industry behind the #1 best-selling class of drugs on the market, statins. Believing that a low LDL cholesterol count is the best way to prevent heart disease, doctors often prescribe medications like statins to keep those levels low. But these drugs can introduce a whole host of problems: muscle damage, brain damage, memory issues, Parkinson's-like symptoms, and muscle aches and pains. Now we know they can increase the risk of diabetes by about 50%. And they prevent your muscles from working properly, so when you exercise, you can't get as fit. In fact, one 12-week study, people who took statins showed a 13% reduction in fitness after a vigorous exercise program. It's like it blocks the benefits of exercise. And they don't even work that well for preventing heart attacks. I mean, you have to treat 50 people with statins to prevent one heart attack, or treat 890 people to prevent one death. That means 889 people are taking it with no benefit. And it seems that when they do work, it has nothing to do with their cholesterol effects. One of their so-called side effects is they lower inflammation. And they also seem to act as antioxidants, which are good things. Still, if your doctor is concerned about your cholesterol, it's important to take the right steps. First of all, get the right cholesterol tests. Check for particle size and particle number of your cholesterol by asking your doctor for a special test. You can either have the NMR cholesterol at LabCorp or the Cardio IQ at Quest. These are critical, and these are the only cholesterol tests you should have because the others are outdated. You want to have the safe, light, fluffy, big cholesterol particles. You don't want to have the small, dense, artery damaging cholesterol particles. A regular cholesterol test just won't tell you this fact. Number 2, I want you to check for metabolic syndrome or diabetes. If you have small LDL and HDL particles, you probably have metabolic syndrome. Do what we call a glucose insulin challenge test or an insulin response test. This is very important. Most doctors don't do this test for insulin. They only check glucose. You have to measure insulin. You also want to check your hemoglobin A1C, which is a measurement of your blood sugar control over the last 6 weeks. If it's greater than 5.5, you might have metabolic syndrome. Also, eat a healthy diet with healthy fats. Eat a diet with a low glycemic load, a diet that's high in fiber, lots of plant foods, lots of phytonutrients, that's full of omega-3 fats. It should be mostly plant-based, and you should consume plenty of good quality protein, such as beans, seeds, and nuts, good quality animal protein, ideally organic or grass-fed, and healthy fats like avocados, nuts and seeds, olive oil, coconut oil, and wild fatty fish. Remember, the good fats can improve the type and quantity of cholesterol in your body. Next, exercise, of course, and get good quality sleep. This is key. So many people don't get good sleep. Also, use supplements to support healthy cholesterol particle size. These include a multivitamin, fish oil or EPA DHA, vitamin D3, niacin, and glucomannan or PGX, which is a super fiber. And finally, use low-dose statins only if you've had a heart attack or heart disease, or if you have multiple other risk factors, while carefully monitoring for muscle and liver damage. So cholesterol is not black and white, and it's certainly not the enemy. You need to dig a bit deeper. Look at your lifestyle, your diet, and get the right tests and take the right action. My new book, Eat Fat, Get Thin, is the perfect reset for your body, especially if you're concerned about cholesterol and diabetes. In my book, Eat Fat, Get Thin, I'm going to show you how fats can actually improve your health and reverse disease, and I'll provide you with the tools to transform your life while eating deeply satisfying foods. So stay tuned for more information about Eat Fat, Get Thin. And if you like this video, share it with your friends and family on Facebook and Twitter. Submit your questions to drhyman.com, and maybe next week I'll make a house call to you.